But how do we know all the things we do know about each other, about South Sudan? It's a global village. The world is a global village, and it's a global stage. And all of us are actors on that stage, and we all have this moment in time to play our part. And if we don't play our part and play it well, the future will judge us. And so that's what this is about. It's about us seizing the opportunity, taking this moment in time for us to be able to dialogue around the issues in South Sudan and talk about how we can work together as a community, as a global community, to partner with the people of South Sudan in coming out of what we call has been this downward spiral in terms of growing humanitarian needs. So Benjamin has done a great job in introducing, and I would say he stole some of my lines, but he didn't steal some of my lines. We share those lines because it's the information we use collectively as partners to respond to the situation in South Sudan. So it's true. 76% of the 12 million people in South Sudan are in need of humanitarian assistance. It's true that South Sudan is placed in a situation with three major crises. The climate crisis. South Sudan is within the fifth, I would say the range of the fifth most impacted by climate change. South Sudan is fourth, according to data from June 2022. South Sudan is ranked fourth in terms of globally the forced displacement crises. We have over 2 million IDPs in South Sudan, over 2.3 million refugees in neighboring countries, and South Sudan is host to refugees from Sudan as well. A protection crisis. Between 2021 and 2022, South Sudan saw a 25% increase in conflict-related sexual violence and sexual and gender-based violence overall. So a protection crisis, a climate crisis, a movement of people, forced displacement crisis, and it doesn't stop. It continues. So while we're talking about our response in trying to make things better for the people of South Sudan, it doesn't stop. The crisis continues. So last year, and when I'm talking about the issue of instability or insecurity in South Sudan, I want to give you a picture. Last year, South Sudan was the country where we had 75% of the people in need of humanitarian assistance. This year it's gone up to 76%. Last year, South Sudan had the record, unfortunately, of being the worst place in the world to be a humanitarian. We had 9 humanitarian deaths. We had hundreds of violent attacks against humanitarians. And also last year, we saw that increase in the violence against women and girls in terms of not only conflict-related sexual violence, but in terms of how women every day have to face violence, violent acts, just in terms of accessing their rights. January 2023, we stand here now already. Today is the 16th of January. We have had 3 humanitarian deaths in South Sudan. Not a great way to start the year. Now, I speak as humanitarian coordinator to say very bad start for humanitarian actors, but it's nothing compared to what the people of South Sudan face. Every day, women and girls must make really heartbreaking choices as to whether or not to access latrine for natural body movement or risk being raped. Now, I entered this building. I chose to go to the restroom before coming in here. Easy choice to make. That's a very difficult choice for women and girls in South Sudan today. Very difficult choice. When discussing with a man, a particular man said it's better for his wife to be raped than for him to be killed. Reality. In South Sudan today, women and girls find it very difficult to access any type of service, and especially when it's linked to justice. Access to justice becomes even particularly harder than accessing other services like water, sanitation, and hygiene. If a woman has been raped or a girl has been raped and she chooses, the slim chance that she chooses to report, because ordinarily she may not want to report because of all of the social, cultural norms around that. If she chooses to report, the chances are high that the person she reports to is a man. The chances are high that the person who analyzes that information is a man. The chances are higher that the person who will represent her is a man. And it's most likely that the person who will hear the case, if it ever reaches there, is a man. Very difficult to be a woman or a girl in South Sudan today. I spoke with a young lady in Malakal POC, and her mother was telling me that she goes to school from the protection of civilian side into Malakal town. And I asked them about the challenges around accessing education. And the young lady spoke to me and said, I just really want to learn, so I take the risk every day. Under the sound of my voice, to you in this room and those listening online, it's no risk in general to get up and go to school. But it's a risk for a South Sudanese girl. Why are we here today? We're here today because as much as we have collectively been working in South Sudan to make things better, things have not gotten better. That's the reality. They haven't gotten better. We continue to have increasing humanitarian needs, but we also continue to face decreasing availability of resources for so many reasons, including the current war with Russia and Ukraine. At the end of the day, nothing's standing still. South Sudanese women and girls are facing climate shocks. There's flooding, there's drought. They're facing climatic shocks. At the same time, they're facing the effects of violence, episodic violence, tensions, ethnic tensions, tribal tensions. They're forced to run, they're forced to flee. And where do they flee to? I visited Canal PG, one of the areas that's very difficult to reach. I went there. And when I got to Canal PG, when I got to that area, I thought the story I was hearing, honestly, if I wasn't there in person, I would have thought it was made up. But I saw the pictures. I met the people. And we had families that slept outside in the flooded area where some water had receded. They slept outside because snakes were inside the house seeking dry ground. I would have thought this was a fairy tale, something made for Netflix. But this is real life. It's not drama. It's not a fairy tale. It's a horror film. The reality for women and girls in South Sudan is that if we don't take action, if we don't continue to take concerted action as peace actors, as humanitarian actors, and development actors, nothing will change for them. But most importantly, it's not about where those individual actions are taken, it's how all of them come together to do business unusual, to do things differently for the people of South Sudan. What we are looking at now as leaders, and for me as the leader on the humanitarian file, for me as the leader on the UN development system, and the deputy in the peacekeeping mission, is how we come together overall as an international community, not only us within the UN, but the member states, the NGOs, INGOs, and local NGOs, how we all come together to look at where we can act together in a way that's different, that's based on local solutions, that's in partnership with the people of South Sudan, to find durable solutions for the issues that we're confronting. So it's about how we program for peace, humanitarian development nexus. You hear a lot about that nexus in our world, but oftentimes it's just words. This time around is action, concrete action, looking at areas where it's possible, where we can address climate mitigation and action, climate adaptation, looking at where communities can start to farm where they didn't farm before, looking at communities that used to farm other agricultural products, to start looking at rice that's so favorable to the flooded areas, looking at how they can adjust themselves. The good thing is that South Sudan has land, lots of land, and so adaptation is possible. The second area we're looking at is food security and livelihoods. How do we now start to build on the fact that South Sudanese in 2021 themselves produced the larger proportion of the cereal that was needed for South Sudan? How do we build on that? How do we partner with local farmers to increase their yield with climate-smart approaches to agriculture, increase their yield, purchase from them locally, and use the locally purchased food to increase their livelihood and their economic viability, economic diversification, and then also use that food to feed those who are most in need of food. And lastly, giving dignity to people who are living in camps and trying to transition some of those camps to communities, to neighborhoods. The reality is that with things shifting, some people will never go back to what they used to call home. The face of insecurity and instability in South Sudan is chaos. The face of instability and insecurity in South Sudan is hopelessness on the face of a child. The face of instability and insecurity in South Sudan is a woman saying, I can't do anything for my children. So I asked some women in Malakal, what does peace look like for you? If we were to have peace tomorrow, and we've signed the peace agreement, the roadmap that's been signed by the country, extending the peace, the agreement, the current peace agreement to 2025, that's a document that's signed by the political actors. But asking the people who truly matter, what does peace look like for you? A wide range of answers, and I've asked that question in so many places to so many different groups of women. I can tell you that in one of the spaces where I asked that question, one woman just broke down crying. She said because she couldn't picture peace. She couldn't imagine what peace looked like. Because all she's known is war since her childhood. Another woman said to me, peace means that my daughter can go to school. Another woman said to me, peace means that I can go home. I can live in my house and not beg for food. I don't want to beg for food. I want to grow my own food. I want my dignity. And that's what this is about. It's about how we come together as an international community, all actors, including the academic world, including all of the researchers and so forth. How do we all come together to bring all of our skill sets and our talents to bear for the people of South Sudan, the forgotten crises? They can be forgotten in the international media. I can't forget them. Because I've been to Bor, I've been to Wa, I've been to Torit, I've been to Abyei, where nobody goes. I've been to Canal, PG. I've been to places that people have forgotten about. So I can't forget them because I see them at night. I see their faces. I see the little boy separated from his family, have been walking for 5 days without food. I see the woman who lost her son to a snake bite. I see them. And tonight it's about you seeing them. It's about you seeing them through our eyes. It's about you understanding that although international media has not been singing the song of South Sudan, we don't want a song sung. We want a script written. But it's a different script. A script of collective action that will have tangible impact on the lives of the people we're there to serve, especially the women and girls. It's not about peace tomorrow. It's about peace today. Because peace tomorrow is too late for South Sudan. It's about peace today. And about holding the government accountable for peace. And making sure that the peace agreement is translated into concrete words that mean something at the community level, at the household level, at the state level. It's not about a national agreement that's placed on websites and we talk about monitoring the benchmarks. It's about the daily benchmark of, do I have food to eat? Do I have a place to sleep? Can my children drink clean water? Have I been forgotten? Thank you.